We've got a brand new Pac-12 expansion candidate. I'll put that in air quotes, but at least the name mentioned for Pac-12 expansion that I had not seen anywhere before. Jon Wilner from the Pac-12 Hotline recently addressed a question from one of his listeners/readers about it. We're going to get into that next here on this video. Welcome into the channel. I am John Kurtz. If you are new here on this channel, I give you college football, college basketball, and conference realignment with a Big 12 slant. Please consider subscribing if you have not subscribed yet. I'm live on Wednesdays and Sundays, and then I sprinkle in some content like this throughout the week as well. So subscribe, make sure you click that bell so you get alerts to know when I'm going live and when I am dropping content. All right, in fairness to Jon Wilner, this is not him legitimately really speculating about this school being a bona fide Pac-12 expansion candidate, but he at least took the time to address this, and I found it quite fascinating that this was even raised by somebody in his mailbag. But here we go. It is from a Brent. Brent asked him, with all the Pac-12 expansion talk, why doesn't New Mexico get a look from the conference? I understand the football program hasn't been especially notable of late, but New Mexico would seem to check a lot of boxes for the Pac-12. All right, I think we should probably be careful with saying check a lot of boxes for the Pac-12 there, but that's exactly, in fact, where Jon Wilner starts on this. He says, I'm not sure about a lot of boxes, but at least three. New Mexico works geographically. It's an R1 research school, the highest level, and the basketball program operates at a sufficiently competitive level, although the past 8 or 9 years have been rough. It's a long time to have been rough, but yes, I mean, I do, in general, have a decent amount of respect for the New Mexico basketball program, and we know how much the Pac-12 cares about academics, right? I mean, if I had a dime for every time that I've heard about academics from the Pac-12 side of things and how much that matters, and us in Big 12, truck stop country, we just don't understand about this whole academics thing because we're a bunch of idiots out here in flyover country hanging out at truck stops. I get it, so I can see why that would be raised as a point there in favor of New Mexico. I'm going to go back to Wilner speaking here. So this is Wilner speaking again. He says also the Albuquerque media market is the 48th largest in the country, substantially bigger than Tucson and Spokane, for instance. Hadn't even totally thought of that. I think it's fair of him to bring that up where, you know, if you're talking about your typical college town, yes, Albuquerque would bring you a little bit more than that. And nothing against Albuquerque at all. I have not been there. I have nothing against Albuquerque. But that is just one that when you say it out loud and we're talking about media markets and Albuquerque and the value there, that just, it doesn't sound right coming out that would be like a real feather in the cap. Again, yes, comparing it to a typical college town, it is going to have an advantage in being a little bit bigger there. But I'm not sure that that's really moving the needle a ton. Here's a little bit more from Wilner. He says, in all candor, the hotline has wondered about the Lobos as an expansion candidate precisely because nobody is talking about them as an expansion candidate. After all, the fundamental tenets of our reporting strategy are 1, follow the money, and 2, listen to the silence. Again, I would actually say like that's a decent point. You know, I mean, most of the time, these things, well, the major moves at least, have happened in silence and obscurity. Like Texas and Oklahoma, it was so silent before it broke that just days before that, Bob Bowlesby went to the podium at Big 12 football media days in Arlington and said, I think we're done with realignment for a while. Like that's how much it snuck up on him. And then USC, UCLA, until Wilner reported it, nobody had really had any kind of whiff that was really going on. Well, short of maybe Greg Pflugar. Shout out to Mr. Pflugar for the work that he did on that too. But it was not mainstream, certainly. It was pretty quiet. It was kept pretty quiet. So I see the point that he is making there, but I just can't see that legitimately making a ton of sense. But here, I had forgotten about this. He says, Wilner says, we know the Pac-12 presidents approved 4 schools as candidates for expansion. San Diego State and SMU are known, right? We've seen George Kliavkoff at SMU on campus at a basketball game, and San Diego State, for obvious reasons, is the number 1 choice there. He says Colorado State could be the 3rd. That was first broached by, like I saw John Canzano floating that. That seems to be a replacement option for Colorado, I would have to think, if they were to leave. And then he says, but the 4th is a mystery. So we don't know who that 4th is. So, hey, could it be New Mexico? I suppose that is possible. He says, is it Fresno State or UNLV? I mean, we've seen Canzano shoot down repeatedly the idea of Fresno State and kept trying to push that toward the Big 12. UNLV, I mean, Dennis Dodd did just write recently a big piece about UNLV and how it's becoming such a sports hub and getting all these professional sports teams in there. So that could make some sense. The Pac-12 obviously already has a relationship there and playing the football champion, like playing the basketball tournaments there, right? They've had some championship events there. Says, could it be Tulane or Rice? We have seen those mentioned before by Jon Wilner as being possibilities there. They carry strong academics. Tulane's football program is certainly on the come up. What about Boise State or Gonzaga? Boise, it's hard. The academics piece becomes, I think, very difficult there. Their football program's lost some luster. Gonzaga, basketball-wise, makes sense, but obviously you're not adding them for football. This is how Wilner will close this. He says, our advice, don't rule out any option. That includes New Mexico, although we're fairly skeptical of the Lobos' identity as the mystery school. The R1 status is notable, but New Mexico isn't a member of the AAU. Also, the football program is third rate. Yeah, I was going to say, like, I have really no idea about the football program at New Mexico. Do not know much about it at all, and that's not a great start here. Says the Lobos can't match San Diego State as an institutional, competitive, or financial fit, nor do they bring SMU's massive market and long-haul potential. In other words, New Mexico doesn't have enough merit in any aspect to clear the expansion bar. Nothing surprises us in the realignment game, especially when the Pac-12 presidents are involved, but the Lobos as a viable candidate for expansion would come pretty close to a surprise. Yeah, it would be a shock. To me, it would be a shock, not a surprise. That would be a shock. But it's interesting. That is interesting fodder from Wilner, and look, the idea and the name of the game and realignment it's very interesting. It's all wildly fascinating, and that's a fascinating one to break down, and to be honest, made me think. It made me think and challenge me a little bit instead of just, shuffling it off, writing it off right away like, oh, that's crazy, that's stupid. Sometimes that stuff needs to be examined a little bit here in the crazy, zany world of realignment. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel if you have not. I'm talking college football, conference realignment, and college basketball from a Big 12 angle here on this channel each and every week. I'm live on Wednesdays and Sundays, so subscribe, click the bell. Make sure you know when it is that I'm going live. You can support the channel on Venmo, John-Kurtz-4. I appreciate all of you guys for being here. Take care, and I will talk to you soon.